Hi, President Biden. You know exactly who this is, I'm sure. So we have a lot to talk about because I need to know if everything that happened to me, is that okay? Because I've got some really hard feelings about my military service. It was a disaster, as you're going to find out. And I have gone through the cognitive behavioral therapy steps and I've isolated everything. And I found out where I fit into that grand scheme of things at individual points in time and to which degree I'm owed blame and to which degree I'm blameless. And it's taken me 16 years to do this. And I've been handled really rough in the past, real bad by a lot of people. And they didn't understand that true cognitive behavioral therapy isn't a 24-week period and it's not a one-day thing. It can actually take 16 to 20, maybe 40, 60, 80 years. So let's talk about one of the things that hurts me the most right off the bat. So I went to 1-8 Bravo Company right after leaving Kings Bay, Georgia, and that was like 2004, 2005. And the trade towers fell just a couple of years earlier, and the lion's share of our veterans, they were on deployment or repeat deployment, especially grunts, and they knew what was going on, but they were at war. So they weren't cycling into the other duty stations. And we were definitely caught off guard by Al Qaeda in that respect. And that's something that we need to look into and think about for the next 20 years, because it's going to happen again. That they're lulling us to sleep, I promise you that. So I left Kings Bay, Georgia. We didn't have, in my time, we didn't have any battle-hardened veterans. We didn't. You could argue that we did, but I'd just argue, well, they were on deployment. So we didn't have that. We didn't have that. And I'm an 0311, Marine Corps. Going to 1-8 Bravo Company out of Kings Bay, Georgia was an absolute disaster because Al Qaeda caught us by surprise. And we were ready, and we did annihilate the enemy. I did not personally. I was doing other work in Kings Bay, Georgia. Nonetheless, the Marine Corps was ready for that, and they did annihilate that opponent. It took a long time, but hey, the newspaper says, hey, we won that war or something or other, but the war's over. But we didn't have anybody teaching us how to do combat stuff, true nitty-gritty combat stuff. Well, we were at Kings Bay, Georgia, so when I went to 1-8 Bravo Company, what happened is that 1-8 Bravo Company is one of the most legendary units in the world. And they did annihilate that opposition overseas, and they took heavy casualties. And I was surrounded as a corporal, as a junior NCO, by battle-hardened veterans who had killed men, who'd watched women and children get killed, and battle-hardened NCOs and staff NCOs, and then commissioned officers alike who had, well, let's face it, they saw bloody urban combat against a vicious opponent. So what we didn't know then, but what I can tell you right now is that when you're an NCO and you transfer to a bloodstained, hardcore group of veterans who are heroes and have a chest filled with all kinds of decorations, is that it's hard on that NCO transferring from Kings Bay, Georgia. It was especially hard for me. And because everybody came back from one of the worst and most horrendous battle scenarios that any 0311 or any military force could be up against. Bouncing back to what we didn't know then, what we didn't know was that, and it's not that we were ignorant, I mean, but at that time we were 18, 19, 21, 22 years old. There's a lot we didn't know. And me being 20 years old at the time, what I didn't understand is that everybody, I knew that everybody was looking down on me, absolutely. And nobody cared about all the good I did in Kings Bay, Georgia, and nobody cared about any of my experience. No one cared about a secret clearance and how hard it was to maintain that clearance. And nobody cared about the thousands of hours that I stood on watch, honoring that secret clearance, and to the best of my ability, securing our country's most prized assets. Nobody wanted to talk about what I could bring to the table. Nobody cared, because from their perspective, to be ready, it meant that all of those experiences that I had at Kings Bay, Georgia were null and void. So I really had nothing to bring to the table. And what could I say to anybody? I had not killed a man. I had not seen women and children get killed or burned or exploded. I was not some famous staff NCO who got shot 6 or 7 times dragging his boys out of the street and out of the line of fire. Just a Kings Bay Marine. And feeling very alone because I was getting yelled at by PFCs and Lance Corporals and then everybody else all the time. And, you know, they were right. They were right. There really wasn't much carryover in what we were doing from their perspective. And they were right from their perspective. But now looking back at it, you know, don't you kind of think there's some value to having maintained a secret clearance? Don't you think that that's good character? I mean, yeah, I didn't have a lot of the skills that the other guys had, but I knew about all of the important aspects of what we were doing in Kings Bay, Georgia. And now looking back, I think that we should have had a talk about what I knew, because I was getting belittled all the time and yelled at and screamed at and running all over the place. And it was just different. And what could I do? Because I was just some newly fledged NCO, a corporal from Kings Bay. What I want you to understand is that 1-8 Bravo company hurt me so bad, and they broke me down so bad that I lost a loved one because of that. And it's one of the most painful things that I can think about, and it does bring tears to my eyes. And the older I get, the more the tears flow. Because, you know, I had a woman that I loved, and she's from the Ford family. And we were passionately in love. She's from the very prestigious line of JJJJJJ. If you know anything about them, then that's all you need to know. And one of those J's was mine. And we were so passionately and deeply in love that we were inseparable, and we were young. And all I could think about was marrying her and and we didn't care about money. We cared about going to the movies, eating pizza, and spending time together. And the treatment at 1-8 Bravo Company, and you have to understand, Biden, this is duty, but I don't feel good about this to this day. To this day, I don't feel good about this, but it's duty. Anybody watching, you have to understand that when your country needs you, your prospects are up in the air. Biden, I do understand this. I spent 16 years working this out. And I'll tell you, the treatment by these young, marvelous men who I looked up to, and I tried to be like them so bad. And I've even shed bawling amounts of tears for these men because I wanted to be their friend so bad. And I wanted to serve them, and I wanted to be their friend, and they wouldn't let me in. And I was never good enough for these men. And I never in a million years thought when I enlisted that it would be that bad. But you also have to understand, Biden, what we know more about today is that those marvelous men at 1-8 Bravo Company who have sacrificed so much for our country, they were also in the line of duty. Cognitive behavioral therapy and 16 straight years of thinking about this every single day has taught me this. Everybody looked down on me. Everybody just had permission to yell at me and disrespect me, belittle me, scream at me all day long. And Jay, all Jay said was that I was great. And every time we talked, Jay would just tell me how great I was and how strong I was. And all we ever did was reaffirm our love to one another and our commitment and devotion to be together no matter what. And I never told her, and she still doesn't know to this day, why our relationship ended. And Biden, you're a married man. I respect you. And I respect your family. But everything that happened at 1-8 Bravo Company, that really hurt me. I was so ashamed. I was being so belittled. I was being spit on so much. I was scared. I was threatened. Absolutely being bullied and punked on a daily basis. And what could I do or say? These men were so marvelous, and I envied them. I worshiped these men. And every one of them was better than me, absolutely. And Jay kept telling me that I was awesome, and she never knew what was going on. Ultimately, our relationship would be destroyed, and I would lose, without a doubt, the most important person in my life. and that was Jay. And she was a Ford. I couldn't tell her what was being done to me because she thought I was Superman. All she saw was that, well, let's face it, when you're 19, 20 years old, you're filled with testosterone and you're in the Marine Corps, your body gets very muscular. She thought I could do anything, and physically I could without a doubt. But this abuse was extreme. These young men, in fact, did have some serious problems. We now know that, without a doubt. They had problems because they needed 20 more years to unpack everything that they'd seen and been through and done. And they had minutes to do it, and they couldn't do it in that time. And they were at a young, prideful, boastful point in their life while overcoming massive military and deployment stressors. And from their perspective, you could do no better than to show how tough you were, than to outright destroy some new guy that came. It was a badge of honor. And I know how tough they were. And I was belittled and put down and yelled at and screamed at every single day. And I never did tell my mother either, or my father. So they never knew. I was so ashamed at everything that happened that I kept everything inside. I needed Jay so bad. So bad. So bad I needed her. To this day, I still do. I needed her so bad. But we were young lovers, and our country was at war. And that relationship could no longer exist because I was in a state of extreme depression and anxiety and a constant fear at all times. When I lost Jay, I was absolutely devastated. I mean, I was already destroyed. I had no pride. I had no dignity. I had no respect. The only thing I had was my woman. And because these young men were so vulnerable because of duty, and everybody was on the highest state of readiness, and there was no way I could ever comprehend that because the fact is we never had any kind of exposure to that in Kings Bay because Al-Qaeda caught us off guard. I'm not okay with this. I mean, it's getting to the point now where I'm breaking down in tears a lot. A lot. A lot. And I don't think it's good. And I understand that that's the yoke of duty. And that duty means that you can go all over the place. But give me a freaking break. When you break someone down and it destroys and it destroys the best part of their life. And I was so beat up and so depressed all the time, I was never able to communicate any of these issues to Jay. She still has no idea. So she went off and she got married and had several kids. And I always did endeavor to serve her to the best of my ability, so I stayed away. So she knew something was extremely wrong. And her family knew that something was extremely wrong as well. So I do serve the Fords in that capacity today, is that I stay away. And I watch as their garden grows. And I watch as mine is barren. And that in itself is duty. And that's war. War means that you don't actually have trajectory. It is, you could map it out on a graph and you'd say that's quote unquote trajectory, but it's all just jagged. It's all over the place. Civilian careers are linear. This is a fact. Unless there's recession or something like that. But when you are a grunt in time of war, there's nothing linear about your progress. At any time, your orders could be messed up, and that's duty. At any time, you could be put in a situation where you lose everything. Thank God we got even with those bastards overseas. Uh, when a Marine loses his woman, you're never. That's not okay. That's not okay. Even in a time of war, that's not okay. That's not okay. That's not okay. I mean, maybe you can tell me, Biden, is that okay? Because I'm really hurt to this day by that. And I need 20 more years of work. And the way our relationship was exploded was so insincere and so disingenuous that to this day it becomes difficult just to hold food and even water down. I get so sick to my stomach. We can fix this stuff in the future. We can be ready for it, and we can talk to veterans, and we can find out if anyone's had a death in the family that's extreme or a loss of obviously the woman you're going to marry. And we can whip something up that works. But in my time, being in war and getting ready for deployment and getting ready to destroy the opposition, I knew for a fact that if I went and talked to anybody about what had happened, that would have been the end of my career, and I might have even been discharged for bringing it up. And that is an unequivocal fact. Because at that time, no matter how bad you were suffering, you just kept it in. And I was 1A Bravo's punching bag. And I took those heavy hits from those outstanding young men who would never treat me like that to this day, who would be there for me 100%. But at that time, what they needed was they needed an NCO to beat up, and I understand that. And it's my honor to have been their punching bag, and it was my honor to be with those great men. And if anything, it was worth it. To help them to vent. And I pray to God that they're okay. Those young men needed to vent. And war is hard. And I have failed so many times in my life. But after 16 years, I've discovered that those magnificent young men, they needed a punching bag. I watched how strong they felt and how they would march around with pride because they knew they were younger than me and they were stronger than me and they were more ready. It was just the pick-me-up that they needed. That is duty. That is what it means to serve in war. You must annihilate the opposition. I would later be able to stand on the ashes of Fallujah, and I would find out firsthand what they did. That was justice. Losing Jay Ford was paralyzing for me. And truthfully, it was the only opportunity that any of us low-born grunts ever had to get a step up in this world. And the simple fact is, those young men were all too happy to watch me spiral down in flames and lose everything. That's where they were at that young, innocent age of being a young man, 18 through 22, that had literally saved the United States. It takes a long time to understand everything. So much pressure has been exerted on me to try to figure everything out all at once. I had to think about maintaining a secret clearance and what that meant. I had to weigh in honor, courage, and commitment. I had to consider what was good, what was right, what was fair, and what was true. I had national secrets. I had to be there for the boys. I had to protect the Ford family's reputation. I had to make sure that Jay never found out and that my family never found out. And nobody knows. No one ever found out. I talked about it at the VA when I was very young and vulnerable. At that time, I wasn't 38 years old. I was just a young boy, a young man, whatever you want to call it. If I could just talk to that young man, we could figure it all out, man. We could. But I needed all of that time to figure everything out. And I was spit on, tricked, manipulated, abused, led astray. My therapy stepped on and stifled at the source, which is my own mind, which I was goddamn well prepared to figure it all out. And it took over 16 years to get here. But no matter how many times I think about it and I run the scenarios, it always ends the same. I lose Jay Ford in the end. And you're going to find out it was for absolutely nothing. But still, steadfast under the yoke of honor, courage, and commitment. Biden, you will understand one thing in Zen. Duty is very complex. I can teach you that. I have a gray hair for every time that I have spent dwelling in the past to figure things out. And I have a gray hair on my beard for every time someone tried to destroy me because I said that I needed to take a step back and think about things and look at what I discovered. I discovered that it was duty and that it was honor and it was commitment. And I discovered that when you serve your country, sometimes you lose the best thing you're ever going to have. Ever. And that's duty. And that's extremely painful. And obviously, in light of everything that's happened, in light of every single time I have been beat up, tossed around, treated like shit, stripped naked, tortured, abused, thrown in the back of ambulances and strapped down. Nobody wanted to listen to me. that is also duty. I never once broke. I never once told anybody what we did in Georgia. Nobody knows what happened. I never once spilled the beans. My family doesn't know what we did there. My friends don't know what we did there. 1-8 Bravo Company sure as hell doesn't know what we were doing there. I never spilled the beans. I was so utterly destroyed because duty means sacrifice. And I was a young man. And I did give it everything I had, and I never did quit for a second. And I was annihilated and hurt in unthinkable, horrible, treacherous, and abusive ways. We would deploy to Katrina, and I was with my platoon 100% of the way. Everything was very foggy in my mind at that time. I was so depressed. Everything was slow. I was very scared and nervous all the time. And these young heroes, they had very high expectations, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I tried real fucking hard, and I couldn't do it. But I was out on the streets with these awesome dudes every single day. And we did help people. And we went into houses that were destroyed, and we did spot bodies, and people were dead, and it was awful, and it smelled like death everywhere that we went. And we never quit, and we did what we had to do, and it sucked balls, but we did it. And I was so hurt from losing Jay. And I was so hurt because I was a failure. And I was so hurt because they let me know it every single second they were around me. Because that's where they were at that time. And they're not like that anymore, I promise you that. They're not like that, but they were young men. And that's what they needed for therapy individually. And it turns out that a lot of young Marines coming back from deployment, that they needed that. In that capacity, I'm proud to have served, but I'm in no way, shape, or form feeling that I was honored at all. That was so dishonorable. And 100% I've been dishonored. I don't know what to do. This isn't right. But it's duty at the same time, and that's honor, courage, and commitment. And you have to understand that when you weigh things out against honor, courage, and commitment, fair, good, true, and right, then you will discover 100% of the time what is that absolute truth. And I can tell you, that sometimes to serve your country, you have to be dishonored. Sometimes to serve your country, you have to be surrounded by people who never let you forget that they're better than you, who will stop at nothing to remind you of how small that you are. And is that dishonorable? You bet your goddamn ass that's dishonorable, but it's that duty? You fucking goddamn right it is. You're fucking goddamn right that's duty. And aren't you glad I spent all this time thinking about this, Biden? Aren't you glad that I let people beat me up and throw me in ambulances and abuse me and rip my fucking clothes off and torture me? Aren't you glad that I spent all this time? Do you have any idea what a lesser man would have done? A lesser man would have destroyed everything in sight. Absolutely would have destroyed everything in sight. My family has been disintegrated. They have no idea what happened. They saw me spiral down hopelessly with nothing, and they didn't know why. Because I didn't tell them what happened, they think I'm weak. All of my friends and all of my family look down on me and they think I'm weak. And every time I try to have a conversation, people call the police on me. And I do stand a high risk of getting shot in a bad police encounter. Because people won't put in the time and they don't want to listen to me. If I was there years ago, I could have solved all of this and I could have been there to give myself a pat on the back. I have lived every second of the past 20 years over in my head and it never ends ever. I could have read more, I could have studied more, I could have done so much more. And all of this could have been prevented. And I have been hurt so torturously bad by my country because people didn't understand that I needed 16 to 20 years to work it out, and they wanted me to be like them right fucking now. And that's not goddamn reasonable. And you see what I've had to go through. You want to know why I didn't rack my guns and start wasting police? You want to know why I didn't rack my guns and started wasting other veterans? You want to know why I didn't rack my gun and annihilate my family? Because I'm a thinking man. People at the VA, they thought I was insane. I told them that all I would do was work everything out in my head. And they said, oh, no, you don't want to do that. Oh, no, you don't want to do that. You think I didn't think about doing all that stuff? You're goddamn right I did. But you want to know why I didn't? Because I kept thinking about it. Because that is therapy. It's a horrible process that will cripple you to your soul. But if you don't go through the process isn't going to work for you. And I take a look at, to know what I know now, and to have basically my country look down on me like I'm a fucking terrorist? Are you goddamn kidding me? This is unacceptable. But gentlemen, you have to understand, all in the line of duty. This is what it means to serve your country. It means you don't have upward trajectory. You've got shotgun scatter shot. You got little scatter shots going all over the board. You could be anywhere. You could end up dead. You could be a hero. You could be the next Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps. You could be the general. You could get paralyzed. You could get shot right in the back. This is duty. And when I think about how bad it hurts in spite of duty, and how my country and everybody looks down on me, I'm not really filled with pride. What fills me with pride to this day is knowing that I understand what it means to serve your country. And I understand what it means to, at all costs, be there for your country. And sometimes that means that we have to send one of our boys to be a whipping boy for better men so that those better men can vent. We did our best in Kings Bay, Georgia, and we did spare lives. We saved people, absolutely, 100%. I was effectively useless at that time because I was crippled mentally and defeated, demoralized. Nobody liked me, nobody trusted me, nobody respected me. Jay Ford was just something that was in my heart, not a distant memory, something that hurt me devastatingly, horribly at all times. And still, I never put my pack down. I just kept doing what I had to do as a Marine. Katrina was disastrous for me personally as an NCO. But I'm proud to say that all of our boys made it back. Nobody got diseased by any of that toxic water. Nobody died. And again, I was just a whipping boy for all those men. Of course they regret that. What Marine would fail to comprehend that all of that happened was wrong? And it's the duty of every Marine that sincerely desires to serve their country to put in the time to comprehend the yoke of duty and what it means to carry that burden. Sometimes it means you end up hurting so goddamn bad that you make a mistake and you'll just about be labeled a fucking terrorist, and you'll be worried that someone's going to shoot you every minute of the day. And I don't bring my firearms out in the public. I don't even bring a knife. I bring my bare hands, empty-handed, like a good Marine. And I don't feel good about any of that, but I understand that that's duty. We would then come back from Katrina, and we'd go on leave. I'd get in a very terrible car accident. I was sober, but I was a young man on leave, on a 10-day leave, and I got in a horrible car accident. And I was not the only one, but I survived. A little bit of whiplash, about a week of painkillers. Boy, did my neck hurt. I didn't get addicted, thank God. But whatever they gave me, it was pretty heavy stuff because I felt good and I was able to go around town. But I was still hurt because I didn't have Jay with me, and I needed her like you have no idea. And I was just a young man that needed another 16 to 20 years to figure it all out, and boy, was I lost. I couldn't talk to anybody. I couldn't talk to our to our young men that I served with. I couldn't. They would mock me, they would call me weak, and I would probably end up getting discharged. So I just held it all in and I imploded. We now know we now understand that the process that I was going through, I was internalizing a lot of grief. And that grief was so utterly complicated as to be near indecipherable to figure out, like trying to read ancient hieroglyphics off of a stone carving. That's complicated grief in a nutshell. When something happens and when you try to figure it out, it just hurts. And you know that something's not right and you feel it in your gut. That's complicated grief right there. And when you internalize everything and you have nobody to talk to, and everybody is watching you and waiting for you to squeal, and everybody is watching and waiting for you to beg for help and ask people to stop, and none of those people that are watching your life get destroyed are in any way, shape, or form ready to handle what's happening to that veteran that's suffering, or to me. They weren't ready for that part of duty yet. Now I'm sure they are. So we'd get back from leave. I did recover from that car accident, a little bit of a concussion. But whatever. It happens. You're young. You get a car accident. I've not been in a car accident since. So acclimating to 1A Bravo Company was 100% the biggest slap in my face I have ever had in my entire goddamn life. And then I got orders to be a combat replacement to 2-2 Easy Company. I was so earth-shatteringly defeated by 1-8 Bravo Company. Hopeless. And then I just got kicked to the curb like a piece of trash to become a combat replacement for 2-2 Echo Company. After 16 years of figuring everything out, because I knew I needed the time. I discovered that being a combat replacement was one of the most honorable things that could ever happen to me. I went to several different places in Iraq. We had forward operating bases, but who really even cares? I was with 2-2 Easy. And they had suffered casualties. They were at war, actively. The war that 1-8 Bravo Company had prepared me for was not even close to the war that we had on our hands. 1-8 Bravo Company, they had prepared me with, I'm up, they see me, I'm down drills, and we would do that. Even I, as an NCO, I would be getting down and dirty and sweaty in that blistering sun, and I would do that because I understood as a rifleman that was what my job was to do. And then we would do urban combat drills. There was a little wooden 2x4 structure right around our barracks at 1-8 Bravo Company, and we would run drills going in, stacking, practicing grenade throws, breaching practice, what you got to do to save your life. And I was absolutely prepared for that. It wasn't the war that we had in 2-2 Easy Company. What we had was a war of watchfulness. Finally, all that training I had in Kings Bay, Georgia was coming full circle. Unfortunately, I was so destroyed and defeated and so lost without my dear, sweet, precious Jay, that I wasn't of much use. But still, I was there, and I did stand on the ashes of Fallujah. And I finally got to feel what 1-8 Bravo Company was going through. This is why it takes 16 to 20 years. So they welcomed me in, my platoon, as soon as I got there. They were grieving from losses. They had a CO who was tragically directly hit by an IED in a Humvee, and several young Marines also died. There was also an incident where the lion's share of the platoon was searching for munitions, and that there was a cave, and they did go into that cave or entrance, whatever it was, and they found munitions of all sort, and wouldn't you know it, that it was booby-trapped, and the lion's share of an entire platoon was riddled with shrapnel and destroyed by explosives and fire. These young men, to this day, I admire. They were without a doubt the best men ever. And they welcomed me in. And they understood that something was wrong. And they still welcomed me in. What I learned from them is that one of the greatest lessons that I have ever learned in my life is that if you're an NCO, your young men underneath you, they eat beef stew and you eat crackers and peanut butter. And that's the end of that. Your existence is to serve them in any capacity. That means you have to be more watchful, you have to be more organized, you have to get less sleep. You'll take strategic sleeps, but remember, in war, duty demands sacrifice, and you have to make sure at all times that everybody beneath you has better food than you. Absolutely. One of the greatest things I've ever learned in my life was that. And I saw that when you have a young lance corporal who's had a friend get killed, and when he has beef stew, he's happy. He's really, really happy. So you'll give your boys your beef stew, and if you have to eat crackers and peanut butter, then I'm sorry, but that's the yoke of leadership, and you have to bear that burden with pride, because when you put that better food in someone else's hand, I can promise you, you'll understand. You'll understand. You will understand. It'll take you years, but you'll understand. We would go on countless patrols, and I was blessed by that opportunity. The greatest blessing I've ever had in my life was that deployment to Iraq. If I didn't have that, I'd have nothing. Thank God I got that deployment. If I didn't have that deployment, everything would be pure dishonor. And I don't know if I'd ever be able to work it out. Honestly, it probably would have killed me, and I probably would have taken my life, but that deployment was the single greatest gift that my country could have ever given me. And I am so proud to have been able to serve my country in that capacity, even though I was basically useless and filled with shame and regret and grief and countless other issues that a young man needs another 20 years to figure out. I did my best. I carried my pack. I never fell out. I did what I was supposed to do. And of course there were problems because I was so freaking depressed. And of course there were problems because 1-8 Bravo Company had made me insecure. And sometimes that is duty in itself. And I never fell asleep on watch. I would always do what it took to get my guys batteries. If their night vision equipment and their heat sensitive equipment wasn't functioning properly, I would stand on watch and I would watch. And I understood how high the stakes were. And I understood that vigilance was absolutely important. I understood that. And I understand it still today. And thank God I was trained properly on how to stand watch in Kings Bay, Georgia, because I was vigilant. I obviously could have been better, but I was at least doing what I was trained to do. And no, everything that I was trained to do in 1-8 Bravo Company was non-existent and too easy because the war had changed. The war had changed. The platoon would grow at odds with me because they knew I was suffering and they knew I was struggling, but they were too young to understand, and I was too young to understand, and I was afraid to talk to anybody. Had I just been able to have a goddamn conversation with somebody, it would have made it a lot easier, but I was afraid that if I talked to anybody that was going on, they would just think I was a coward, and it would destroy my service. So again, I just kept everything, and I internalized it, and what ended up externalizing from that was poor service and a vastly decreased ability to serve my country. Things would get pretty heated. Things would get disastrous for us young men. One of the worst nights of my life. We'll get to this in a second. One of the greatest honors I've ever had in my life was being struck directly by an IED. We came back from a VIP search. The nature of the war and command's strategies at that time did dictate that we go out at any given time to collect VIPs. We had collected this particular night probably about 5 or 6. On our way back to our forward operating base, which may have just been some house that we had occupied. I don't remember, it was so long ago. As a matter of fact, it was a little village, a dusty, quiet little village, super conservative values for that particular part of the world. In no way, shape, or form mimicking our conservative values or in any way, shape, or form being an antithesis to liberal values as opposed to conservative values. When I say that it was a dusty little conservative Iraqi village, their version of conservative is vastly different than ours, to the point that even the most staunch Bible thumping hardcore Christian conservative appears as just some social justice warrior to them. So you have to be careful when you talk about conservatism over there, because it's different from conservatism over here. Nonetheless, it was an extremely conservative, Orthodox community, and we had occupied their home, and that was their sacrifice, but that was our duty, and we were committed to do whatever it took. So on our way back from that VIP search, we had 5 or 6 guys, VIPs, that we had collected and that we were going to send into receiving in Camp Fallujah. And I do not know what happened to those men, and quite frankly, I don't really care, because I'm rather dispassionate about the enemy at this point. Our job was to protect Americans. If our high echelon strategizers told us that we had to do that and collect those people of interest, then you can bet your goddamn ass there was a good reason for it. We came back, and we were about a mile away from our base. Actually, I don't even remember where we were going. I think we went back to Camp Fallujah because we had to put those VIPs that we had collected into receiving. And on the way there, I was in the lead Humvee, and my Humvee door was directly hit by the greatest and brightest explosion I had ever seen in my life. And by a miracle, nothing happened. We had half a dozen mixed privates, PFCs, Lance Corporals, and even another NCO in the back. And the shape of the Humvees at the time, they were up armored, but the back also highly mimicked a pickup truck, but with very high steel walls that would insulate from shrapnel and debris and gunfire. Had to have been at least a 1/4 inch thick, maybe even a little thicker than 1/4 inch, but that Humvee was heavily armored, and nobody died. And that was one of the greatest honors I've ever had in my life. To me, that was the closest I ever got to real combat. Within my platoon at 2-2 Easy Company, we would almost on a daily basis be running away from mortars and rockets. And looking back, that was very honorable. That's what we trained to do, and that was glorious. And I wish I could be there today, and I wish I could have gone on more deployments, and I wish I wasn't so broken down so that I could have done more and served more. So I really wasn't that shaken up by that IED. I mean, it had an effect. I was a young man and I almost got killed. But I had great role models in our platoon, and I saw what they were doing. And a chaplain came through, and we all talked about it, and chaplain asked, my thoughts, and I just said I could continue to go. And that's what everybody was doing. And that was probably the greatest decision I ever made. In no way, shape, or form was that a lie. That was me being so perfect in that moment to tell that chaplain that I understand and know this is what has to be done. Thank God I had that fortitude even in that state. Could you even imagine? In the state I was in, I probably, if the scenario could have been replayed out between a number of men going through the same particular life, a good handful of them would have just quit. Anyways, it was getting really intense because relationships in the community, we weren't winning hearts and minds. It wasn't going 100% well, I'll tell you that. And when we were on post, we'd be getting shot at, hitting our equipment, protective gear, and we'd be running away from mortars and rockets all the time, and there was the ever omnipresent threat of getting just exploded at any given time. Yes, things got tense. Yes, we were young men, and we were very ready to serve at all cost. And yes, we were also very unaware of what we were doing to each other. Things would get incredibly heated. And then I would then be tricked to go into a building in one of our bases. This particular base had Hesco berries all over the place, and it was built by engineers and reinforced by engineers. Sandbags all over the place, Hesco berries all over the place, insulated in every way, shape, or form. This particular base, there was one large room connected to a similarly smaller room, and what we did was we would put all of our sea bags there. So one night I was tricked by one of the outstanding young men who in all ways I looked up to and wanted to serve as best I could. And I was tricked to go in there, and when I got in there, there's about 7 Marines in there. There's about 7 Marines in there. And I was all by myself. And they did threaten to kill me if I couldn't get my ass in gear. And I told them that I understood. And I do remember a young man reassuring me that if I couldn't get my ass in gear, I would be shot. And I understood that. And that really, really hurt. And that is dishonorable, yet part of duty, yet I don't feel right about that at all. I don't feel good about that at all. At this point, I had transitioned from a security force company with no NCOs and staff NCOs back from war. And I transitioned to 1A Bravo company. And these young men had a lot of problems. And boy, did they feel better about themselves for what they did to me. And I would go ahead and lose Jay Ford. And I never told any of my friends or family about any of this at all. Jay never found out. Had a disastrous transition and then was prepared for a war that was no longer on the table for us. And then I was sent as a combat replacement to Tutuisa Company. And that was honorable. And I don't feel right at all about what happened that day in that room. I was reassured that I would be murdered. 100%. And yes, I can still see their young faces in my mind as if they're standing right next to me today. And if you think that they would ever do that to me now, then you about lost your goddamn mind, because there's no way they would ever do that to me now. But what we know now is that in war, things get so heated. And when you're a combat replacement and nobody knows who you are, again, Sometimes you have to serve those who are magnificent with yourself in ways that you're not in any way, shape, or form prepared for. But if you'll just stick it through, in 16 or 20 years, you'll understand that that is duty. You're going to feel very bad about it. You'll burst into tears randomly throughout the day. You won't be able to relate to anybody. You're alienated 100%. Your family won't understand you. Your friends won't understand you. Everybody's going to look down on you. And you're just trying to get some help. That was dishonorable, 100% what happened to me there. And I swear that I will hold their names until the day that I die. Too Easy Company, what I'm telling you absolutely did happen. And I never spilled the beans. I told the VA about it over 10 years ago. But, or maybe I didn't, I don't remember, but I'm pretty sure that I did. But the VA has a way of securing certain things, and that's one of the things that was secured at my request. And thank God I held all that in. Because had I been a lesser man, I would have ratted you all out. I have all of your names on the tip of my tongue. I know what you look like. And I love you with all my heart. And one of the greatest shames is that these men, along with other men, a man who was then later killed, a sergeant, they would then have a secret vote to send me to Camp Guard to rot. Utterly annihilated and defeated to my core. I'm not okay with that, Too Easy Company use. I was threatened by about 7 Marines. They said they would murder me. And you know that would have, if it happened, it would have been made to look like it was a sniper. And they would have made up a story about me that was honorable and how I made a sacrifice. Either that or I just would have been MIA. And then those same Marines, they would then vote to send me to Camp Guard to rot. Another slap in the face. The greatest honor I ever had in my life was getting deployed. The greatest honor I ever had was getting IED'd. The greatest honor I ever had was running from rockets and mortars. The greatest honor I ever had was standing post and going on patrol in a war zone. And the greatest honor that I ever had in my entire life was serving with you marvelous motherfuckers. And I worship you today, and I understand you, and I am by you 100%. But I'll be goddamned if what you did wasn't fucking disgusting to its core. Fucking wrong. Absolutely. That is dishonorable. And I have carried this great shame. And I have carried this shame in hospitals. And you know what they've done to me in hospitals, my brother? My brothers? Holding in your secrets. I'll tell you what they've done. They have literally ganged up on me in mobs while I suffered and begged. And they ripped all of my clothes off. And then they did make fun of me and made jokes about me while they held me down. While I begged for mercy. And they made jokes about me while I was naked. And they looked in my eyes and they smiled and made jokes at me and about me. You want to know why that happened to Too Easy Company? Because I internalized you. because I had to analyze the situation, to find out where I fit into everything, and to what degree was I owed blame, and to what degree was I blameless. And for the past 16 years, every single day, I go through the same therapy in my mind, analyzing my entire 4 years of horrible, disturbing service. And I just don't feel right about anything that happened over there in regards to that experience. And I never once loaded any of my firearms and tracked you guys down. I never once hunted you down. I never once made YouTube videos about you. I never spilled the beans about your names. I let these people torture me in the worst ways imaginable because of the pain of what you boys did to me. That's duty. It's not Stockholm Syndrome. Sometimes that's duty. You owe it to your nation, you owe it to yourself to figure this stuff out. Just because the VA Medical Center tells me that I'm overanalyzing things, did anyone ever stop to think that maybe I was actually smart to figure all this out? Hell, I never wasted a whole bunch of motherfuckers. Lesser men would have. You want to know why I didn't? Because I'm an analytical individual and I needed my time and my space to think about it. And I did suffer brutally for you. I suffered brutal treatment at the VA. Being ganged up on, being surrounded by police, being chased by police, nearly being shot by police, police coming to my house, nearly being put in a position where I could have been shot at least a dozen times, fed all kinds of drugs, been told that I was a fool, being belittled, having doctors tell me that my way wasn't the way, telling me to stop thinking, stop figuring things out, holding me down, locking me away in rooms, locking me down on tables while I ate your pain. Having my clothes ripped off and being surrounded by Americans who made fun of me while I was naked was evil. Brothers, this happened. Because of you and because of me and because of duty. And I don't feel good about any of that. I begged them to stop, and they just kept pulling my clothes off. And I was there naked, surrounded by young girls, brutish security thugs, and young men, and that I would be compromised like that and be in the presence of young women while they made jokes about me while I was naked. It fucking hurts me bad. I needed a long time to figure all this stuff out. I cried for each and every one of you Marines at Too Easy Company. I want you to know that I bawled like I'd never bawled before. I cried for myself because sometimes you have to think about stuff that's awful, and it means you have to think about it, and it hurts real bad. And finally, after 16 or 17 years of thinking about it, I finally made the breakthrough of a lifetime. And I was finally able to cry for you guys because I understood that you were awesome. But you understood that I was not. One of the things that I was crying like a little bitch about was a sergeant that we had that was shot. It was a head injury, a sniper round head injury to a beloved squad leader, and he was a sergeant. And I cried because I never got to know him better, and he was so warm and welcoming to me as an NCO, and he understood that I had a big fight ahead of me. And why the tears wouldn't stop is because I finally understood that even though a significant portion of my platoon threatened to murder me in the desert, he never did. Or maybe he did. There's a couple faces I just can't remember. Maybe he did. But I don't think that he did. But maybe he did. But he treated me warmly. He gave me space. Wasn't awful to me, didn't mistreat me or anything like that. Never yelled me out or singled me out. That man was up and beyond the call of duty. Outstanding. Why would he get shot? That's not even fair. When you think about it, when a man like that gets shot, when your whole service is a disaster, and a man like that treats you with respect in a war zone, and then he gets shot, and you want to know what the kicker is? He was without a doubt one of the individuals who voted to have me rot in fucking camp guard. Absolutely. And I fucking worship that awesome Marine. And I wish I could be more like him every minute of my life. And I understand that he was young at 24, 25. I understand that he needed 16 to 20, maybe 40 more years to unpack, and things happened. And I understand that all of you awesome Marines, you just needed time. And that none of you would ever do that to me or anybody else today, but it happened. And the greatest breakthrough I've probably ever made in my life was finally being able to feel what it was like to be in your shoes. And when I realized that all I wanted to be was your friend, and all I wanted to do was serve you better, and I couldn't. And several of you threatened to murder me, and now I realized that you were just young men. And I wanted to be your friend so bad. None of the other combat replacements that went to that platoon were in that room. It was only the original platoon members who were left. It becomes very brotherhood oriented. That's another part of duty that you're just going to have to prepare yourself for. That's honor, courage, and commitment. But I wanted to be your friends. and I worshiped you, and I always was in your shadow. And you threatened to murder me, and you sent me to rot in camp guard. And I never said I quit, and I never agreed to that. And I needed honor so bad. I could have been out on that patrol where that sergeant got shot. I may have been able to save his life. Oh, when you take a look at my service record, oh, my PFTs were always in the top 10 fucking percent of the entire Marine Corps. And my accuracy with firearms was without a doubt in the top 10% in the entire fucking Marine Corps. You think I could have been a goddamn asset for you out in that field? Fucking bullshit. Fucking bullshit. And it took me 16 years of getting tortured by the VA and other hospitals and fucked with by police and almost killed and almost shot by police countless times to figure all this out. And I can tell you unequivocally that I forgive you all, that that's what it means to serve your country. That is duty. And I have been dishonored fucking terribly. And I am not okay with this at all. At all. And I will never be okay with this. Ever. But I understand duty. Unfortunately, nobody else does. One of the worst parts about crying for a sergeant that you worshipped and that you wanted to be friends with and that you wanted to serve is when you reach that part of that crying experience and then you have the breakthrough of a lifetime that you are crying for a man that may have been ready to kill you, and that you are crying for a man that absolutely voted you out of the platoon to rot in fucking camp guard. That's the greatest dishonor of all. That's the heaviest yoke that I can even think of. We got a fucking problem here, Biden, because I don't know what to do. Is any of this okay? Is any of this okay? It's duty. I deployed. That was honorable. I was IED'd. That was honorable. I didn't get a combat action ribbon, and I was directly hit by an IED, but survived by a miracle along with everybody else in the platoon. That was dishonorable. And you know that the reason I didn't get that combat action ribbon was because the platoon didn't want me to have it. That's dishonorable. But that's part of duty because young men don't make the best decisions. So that's duty. And in a strange way, that's acknowledgement of honor, courage, and commitment and a way to rationalize bad experience to find the truth. Those men, they're not like that anymore, and some of them are probably dead. Josie still doesn't know. Her name is ringing through my head so much that one slipped, but I'm not refilming any of this again. Her name is so powerful that it hurts me all the time. So is Josie Ford. And I'm sorry, Josie, that I let your name slip out there, but what do you expect at this point? I mean, you see how my country treats me. You see how I have no opportunities. because I'm different than everybody, because the yoke of holding in all these secrets has destroyed all my prospects. I'm 38 now, Josie. And I'm just about one step away from probably being labeled a terrorist now. Because I made a mistake, Josie. I held in our secret, and maybe that wasn't the right thing to do. I don't think that was the right thing to do, Josie. But you need to carry on. Your family's an honorable family in every sense of the word. Think of what your family has done for our country. Your family has given money to hospitals and charities, even in other places in the world. Your family has contributed to the military in ways that are incalculable, giving funds and leadership. Your family is one of the most honorable group of men and women in our world today. Don't be ashamed about any of this. What happened to me, that was duty. I am not happy about any of this. I'm sorry, Josie. I hope that you will forgive me. When we met at the beach that one last day, and you asked me why everything imploded the way that it did, and you asked me why I wouldn't come back, and you said you would have taken me back. The reason why is because I had failed. I had lost. I was a failure, Josie. I had failed my family, and I had failed my country 100%. One of the things that hurts really, really bad today, Josie, is that your family gave money to the hospital system that hurt me. You know how many people that money get helped? Breast cancer research, research on arteries and blood vessels, research on stroke prevention. It expanded facilities and technological wonders and put those tools in the hands of licensed pros. Your country has served, your family has served our country so well. But I've got a problem with just one thing that your money touched. And that is that your family's money went into torturing me. Brutally. Brutally torturing me. In front of young women. And they made fun of me. And I'm not okay with that. And I did that, and all that happened because I I couldn't. I needed time, Josie. I'm sorry. I needed time. You see, I need another 20 years. Biden shit got real fucked up. I'm sorry for what happened at the Canandaigua VA, Biden. I freaked the fuck out. I got scared. I got scared because I've been tortured. I got scared because I've had one too many encounters that were wrong with the police, and it's just a matter of time before I get shot. I have been tortured by Americans 100%. And Biden, I hope that you can forgive me for what I've done. But please, please forgive me for what I have done. I worked it out. What I did was wrong. I rationalized it because I was scared. And I justified it because I didn't want anybody else to hurt me anymore, but I still failed. You must please forgive me, Biden. Please. Josie, what I did was I freaked the fuck out. And there were women at the candidate with VA who I talked about online, and it was a very hot and anxiety and high fear scenario where I thought I was going to have my firearms taken away, and I thought I might end up actually getting killed. And it was reading my last rites kind of a thing. And at an ultra passionate moment, I fucked up. And I'm sorry, and I'm sorry, Biden, for what I did. You must forgive me, and I need another 20 years. And I don't feel comfortable around my family, and I don't feel comfortable around my friends. And I am scared that the police will shoot me. And I don't bring a firearm outside, and I don't bring a knife outside. I'm empty-handed 100% of the time. So if somebody wants to whack me, well, then I guess you're going to have a pretty easy go at it. Maybe I deserve it. Man, I am so sorry for what I did. I didn't have anybody to talk to, and every time I tried, people would swarm me with the police, and they would scare me, and they would torture me, and this happened. This happened, and I'm not happy about it, and I understand. And I understand Biden, and I understand Trump, and I understand Obama, and I understand Bush, but god damn it. This is some dishonorable fucking shit. Biden, I'm asking you to please forgive me, to pardon me. The VA there's a behavioral unit at the VA medical system, and they've put a flag on my account. They want me to check in with the police every time I go there. I'm asking you, please, in the name of God and all that is good, you have to spare me this one. Because I have taken a lot of whippings for the team, and I don't want to take any more beatings. And it's getting so bad, I'm worried I might even just get shot. I lost Josie in the worst way possible. And I lied to her for nearly 20 years. And I never told her what happened, and she always wondered. And I have lost the respect of my father, who has watched me disintegrate. And I have lost the respect of my entire family because they could never comprehend. And I have lost the respect of everybody. And I am asking you to pardon me. And please spare me any more of this. And to please, you have to let me talk to somebody. You see how far I've come by myself. How much I figured out. But Biden, you have to understand, I'm in pain, and I want only honor, courage, and commitment. And I want only to serve. And Boy, am I in big fucking trouble, Biden. You have to pardon me if you could, please, sir. And yes, it's one of those things where I'm fucking begging you with tears in my eyes, if you will please let this pass. And I don't know what we're going to do about these other issues. But my country and my brothers, I'll never betray you. No one will ever know your names. And I will always stand between evil and those who are weak. Biden, I'm begging you to forgive me because honor, courage, and commitment, right, true, good, and right, and fair is so complex and so difficult to comprehend that it's been a nightmare for me to understand what's happening. And I have fucked up really goddamn bad. And I need 20 more years of work. I'm bursting into tears almost every day now, randomly, because of what I did to Josie and how good her family was to me. And make no goddamn mistake about it, they're the most wonderful people you will ever meet. We're talking about people with calloused hands, sunburnt, calloused hands. We're talking about givers, not takers. We're talking about freaking heroes here. And I have dishonored their family. I'm sorry. It was too painful. And I have dishonored my country, and I could have given more. I failed really, really bad. I don't know what we're going to do, but I'll tell you what I'm up to. I use the VA home loan, and I buy rental property. I have a duplex and I have a fourplex. COVID was really hard for me in the line of duty to serve my country, and my commitment to always be there for those that have less. I did suffer some abuse by my tenants, refusing to pay, destroying my property, and leaving me penniless in a lot of cases. And still I have survived. And I will use the VA home loan again. I'm trying to secure a $25,000 loan so that I can repair the damages to my duplex that I have. And I have been freaking out so much in the bank because of all the stuff that I'm holding in that I'm not even sure they'll give me the money. And I've got a 796 credit score. And my total income is about $70,000 to $75,000. And I can afford the loan. And I get twisted up in knots, and I start sweating so profusely in the bank. And I need someone to talk to, so I do talk to people at the bank about what's going on, and they're not supposed to know about this stuff, and I don't have anyone to talk to because I'm afraid of the police, and I'm afraid of getting tortured by Americans. And I'm afraid that they're not going to give me that $25,000 loan, and I need to make these repairs. I have a business partner. He's a Guatemalan immigrant, and he's my opposite in so many ways. He's a religious man, and I'm not. But that doesn't mean that I don't have a sense of belief. It's just that I like the stars, and I like the planets. But we both had the same core values, and that's integrity, doing good business, honor, courage, and commitment. He's not a Marine. He's Guatemalan. And that is another level of being an American. So this guy's tough, and he's also a pastor. He sends his money back to Guatemala to build schools and to educate people and to get the young people schooled. Biden, I just want to give my money to young people to prepare them. And you see that I'm in so much pain that I'm going to screw everything up if I don't get help. I need you to, if you would please, sir, if you would please forgive me for what I have done. And if you would pardon me on a very serious issue, and I would never do anything ever to hurt a VA employee. I need dental work and I need to talk to somebody. I don't want to check into with police. God knows I deserve it. Honestly, something tells me you already helped me out. By all rights, I could probably be in jail or prison for what I did. And I got this slap on the wrist, and I'm asking you for more. This devil dog lacks humility. But I have other virtues that you'll find to be quite outstanding. And if we can just let me talk to somebody, please. And would you just please let me just go to the VA without having to check in with the police? I will do anything that you ask me to do. There's a lot I don't feel right about Biden. I don't feel okay about it. I rationalize it as it being duty, and I rationalize it as being honorable and courageous and committed to the cause. But it hurts a lot, and I don't feel good about it, and it's getting real bad now, 16 years later, when I have to hold back my tears all the time because the pain is so intense. I know what I did was wrong to those girls at the VA. That's my fault. Yes. Was it a heated moment? And in that high anxiety moment, was I not thinking clearly because I was scared? Yes, but I could have been better. I could have. I definitely could have. And I did go on a ruthless campaign online. We have a situation now where I'm a survivor of bad care, and now we've got two American women who are now a survivor of a veteran. And that's a big problem. I still don't feel right about most anything that I served this country for. But I just endeavor to carry on. But I don't feel good about any of the things that I talked about. But I do truthfully believe that those men that hurt me, they're not that way anymore. I hope you'll understand that I'm a patient individual, although there's times when I make snap decisions which are really bad. Just imagine if I had a team. A strategic thinker like me with my background knowledge in hospitals, hospital abuse, sexual trauma, torture, losing a loved one during your service, being devastated by that, being incredibly depressed, being a punching bag for young men that just aren't 100%. And understanding and being surrounded by a whole bunch of people as an NCO that are in really bad shape psychologically, and they're internalizing their grief in such a negative way that they're externalizing it. And the way they externalized it on me filled their chest with pride. And I understand this. I know how the VA home loan works. I got my credit to an 805, 805, 807. Last time I had it pulled, it was a 796. I did that by myself. I saved up money. I needed a lot of help. Obviously, I needed a lot of help. And that money that I got came from other people. Boy, did I need it. And I was broken. And I was able to make myself a business with the help of other people. Is anything that I did okay? I mean, honestly. I mean, is it okay what happened? Is that... I don't feel okay about that, Biden. But if you'll let me be of service, we can prevent that from happening again if you'll let me serve. And I'm here as your humble servant, and I'll let you think of something that I could help my country with. But I have a lot of knowledge, and I have a lot of experience, and I've read plenty of books, and I've become quite the good listener. And although there are times I don't put my outstanding communication abilities to the best use, I've learned to mute myself for the most part because I've become such a powerful speaker that if I don't have a script, boy, can it get dangerous. And I have learned that burden firsthand as a powerful speaker that, dear God, do I have incredible amounts of power and I could destroy everything in sight if I don't tame it. But this one goes out to you, Biden. You're our sitting president right now. Find some way to communicate with me. I'm sorry for what happened. I'm sorry for that. And I could have been better, and I'm sorry about that. And Josie, obviously I shouldn't have let your name slip, but I'm not okay with what happened at all. But that's duty. And when you asked me what was wrong, and I just looked down while we sat there on that bench on the beach, what was wrong was that I was being terribly abused and hurt by my young, marvelous brothers. And they definitely did corner me in a room in Iraq and threaten to murder me. And I didn't know how to handle that situation. And I know you would have taken me back, but I was defeated. Only time is going to heal this. But I think that if you just put some time into it, you'll eventually figure things out. Thank you for your time, Mr. President.